So, welcome, friends. This is Saturday morning. Um, what is it? November the 22nd. Wow, the month has skipped away. And today, um, we're going to be talking about something that actually a lot of people don't like to hear. And I haven't talked about it very much, and that is our duty to the Dhamma. So let me talk about it in the easy way first, and that is Dhamma with a little d, as opposed to the big D, which would be then the Buddha Dhamma. So we're talking about ordinary versus supramundane or noble. Now, in the ordinary sense, in ordinary language, we do have duties. You do have a duty to take the next breath. If you don't, then the body is going to start struggling mightily. Let's say that you're underwater and that the body will fight to take that breath, even if it doesn't get anything but a lung full of salt water. It's still going to take that breath. And if you don't take the next breath, let us say after you have expired the last breath, then you're dead. So we do have certain duties in life. Now we can see a lot of it would be considered ordinary. Like, for instance, the four requisites is an ordinary thing when we recognize that everyone does need adequate housing. We do need adequate food. If you don't eat, you don't live. You also need to have adequate clothing. If I walked around New York the way that I'm sitting here on the porch, I'd probably get arrested. So we also have to have adequate medicine. Now, we can see that at an ordinary level, but we can also see that it does have supramundane qualities. It does have noble qualities in the sense that we can use those four requisites um, and gain freedom by using them correctly. But it's important to understand that ordinary life has an awful lot of duties. If you drive a car, you have a lot of duties about driving the car. One is just to stay in your lane, to stay under this, and to have a license, and to have, and all kinds of stuff. And if you don't have the things that you need, if you're not meeting your duty to the Dhamma, you can go for a while. And then you might get stopped, all hell breaks loose, traffic accidents, all kinds of things. And so when we recognize that we do have duties in an ordinary sense to the Dhamma, and those duties, a lot of us, we don't like them. We don't like to have duties to the Dhamma. Kids have a duty to do their homework. They don't like their homework. They don't want to do their duty. And then they have to pay for that. This is what we would call then, in a way, the law of karma in its most ordinary basic form. If you do good, and in fact, if you do your duty to the karma machine, then you will get good results. And if you do not do your duty to the karma machine, then you will have to deal with those results in probably a way that you don't like it so much. And so if we can set that as the foundation, that there is duties that we have in real life, I call it real life now because that's the joke, in the unreal life of ordinary living, worldly living, we can then see that we do also have duties to the Dhamma in the supramundane sense. Now, the Buddha actually mentions this in a lot of different suttas in kind of a soft way where people can miss it. But Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, he rams this home. We have duties to the Dhamma. And if you fail your duties, you will pay for that. He's pretty clear about it. But all of the clarity that he puts into it actually has sutta references. And that one of the soft references is when you can see that the Buddha himself has a duty. And what is his duty is to teach the supramundane. His duty is to teach dukkha, dukkha nirodha. He saw that duty and he gained great value, great benefit by doing his duty to the Dhamma, by spreading it, by not keeping it still. In fact, there is a passage where it says that the Buddha, he reflected, who can I teach this to now that I understand it correctly? And then he thought of Alakalama. Nope, he's dead. How about Ramaramaputta? Nope, he's dead too. Let's not bother to teach it because there's not going to be anybody that's going to understand the Noble Dhamma. You probably heard that passage. But then he says, never mind. Even though there is no one who could possibly understand the subtleties of the supramundane Dhamma, I'm going to go teach it anyway. So that was the duty that the Buddha had, was to teach the Four Noble Truths. Well, if you hear the Four Noble Truths, doesn't that kind of impart to you that you have a duty to the Four Noble Truths? You have a duty to see dukkha directly. You have a duty to see that this dukkha is caused by things that are inside of your own mind, your own greed, your own ill will, your own ignorance. And you also have a duty to come out of that. You have a duty to come out of it. And here's where the benefit really comes in. If you do your duty to the Eightfold Noble Path, that means that you stay on the path. And when you're on the path, when you're practicing correctly, you're getting the benefit of the fruit of it, of the Third Noble Truth. You're not suffering. So that's the benefit of doing your duty to the Dhamma. The Eightfold Noble Path must be practiced often, regularly. And now, there's a reason for that. And that is that it is, have you heard the term Buddha nature? It's quite common in Mahayana. You've heard the word Buddha nature. Have you seen any natural Buddhas? Now, there are Paticca Buddhas. There are those who have done the practice and gained the benefit, and they don't teach. But there's no such thing as Buddha nature. What we have is the nature of dukkha. It's part of our nature. It's part, in fact, of our instinct. And you could also say that it's built in as part of our ignorance, that people are not born wise. They're born dead stupid. And they stay that way, even though they gain a lot of knowledge. So, when we begin to see that we have a duty to the Dhamma, that means that we have a duty to begin to see the dukkha. Now, there's something there's a subtle point that I want to make sure that people begin to understand this, and that is that almost all of our pleasure, in fact, sensual pleasure, scrumptious food would be something that's talked about, or maybe a beautiful object. All of that food that we desire comes from the lack of satisfaction. In other words, if you saw an absolute drop-dead gorgeous person, let us in normal states, because the women are told that you've got to be drop dead gorgeous. If you don't be drop dead gorgeous, you might as well just drop dead, because you're not going to have a life. But the point that I'm making is that when a guy sees the drop dead gorgeous girl, he wants her. Why? Is because he's already got dukkha. He's already got it. It's there. And you can think of it like this. It's when you see that girl and you like her and you see her beautiful lips and her eyelashes and all of that, or if you taste that beautiful lasagna, that scrumptious cake, what that's doing is that's kind of like scratching an itch. The itch was the dukkha that was already there, and we are scratching that itch with our sensual pleasure, our sensual desire. Now, here's the point. If you don't have an itch, why are you scratching? If you keep scratching and scratching and scratching without any itching, you're going to cause damage to your skin. And that's what people are doing. They're going around trying to scratch an itch, and they're not recognizing that that itch does not need a scratching with sensuality. What it needs is a balm, a salve. We need to take care of it directly rather than scratching it. So, this is the way that we can begin to understand that we have a duty to see this underlying dissatisfaction. It's an underlying tendency. It's part of our nature. We the self-preservation instinct, the instinct for procreation, the instinct for nesting or herding, the instinct for territory. All of these instincts are creating and are based upon dissatisfaction. In other words, we make a territory because we know our territory, and that we become afraid of the territory that we don't know. And so our nature is to be dissatisfied. Our nature is to try to protect ourselves when in fact we often don't need any protection at all. This is the self-protection instinct. And let us use it like this. If somebody hurls an insult, and we'll stand up and get hit by that insult, and then because we are seeing that's me that he's insulting, we're actually creating more dukkha by trying to defend ourselves. I see this on our groups from time to time, is that they'll make an outrageous statement that's against the Dhamma, and I'll point that out to them, possibly in a humorous way, and they'll come back with, "You missed my point. You didn't understand what I was saying." Well, what that actually means is now they're scratching. They're scratching an itch. And what is the itch? The me. I, me, mine causes a lot of itching. And so we go around doing a lot of scratching, often doing more damage than that is ever necessary. So this whole point then of our duty to the Dhamma is actually most importantly our duty to see this underlying tendency of dukkha. It's there. It's there almost all the time in the subconscious, if you want to say it like that, or it'll rise up instantly and immediately because that's our nature. I know the Mahayana is going to become very unhappy and try to scratch me because I say them about the Buddha nature, because they think that all Buddha nature is really, really important. Well, it's going to only become Buddha nature by practicing against our dukkha nature. Doesn't that make sense? That you can actually change your nature. You can change your nature by becoming, let us say, immune to the self-preservation instinct. That in fact, you don't have to preserve the self. You don't have to. You don't have to go into sensuality. That in fact, when they call it the self-preservation instinct, second cousin or first cousin of procreation, what they should have taught was it's not procreation, it's the sensuality, it's the desire to own, to hold, to keep weapons, to keep objects, tools, etc., like this, because we want to use them for protection, just like we would use a mate for protection. Especially women, they want to have a man to protect them. So this is what the second instinct is that we think that we need protection because things are dangerous. And why do we think they're dangerous? We think they're dangerous because we already have that underlying tendency for dukkha, the underlying tendency for ill will, the underlying tendency for greed, the underlying tendency for ignorance, the underlying tendency, which is in fact the statement of the self-preserve instinct, the underlying tendency for to have a body, to have existence. Rupa raga is the instinct itself, and that the real practice, the real duty that then we have is to come above our underlying tendencies, to come above our instincts, to practice correctly. Now, let's look at the Eightfold Noble Path in a kind of a new way. Is that because we have in fact been subject to dukkha so much, and that we have sensual ideas, sensual pleasures. We like scrumptious food. We like beautiful objects. We like convenience and all of that kind of stuff, simply because there's already dukkha there. If there was no dukkha, if there was absolutely no dukkha, then scrumptious food wouldn't mean anything. If there was already no dukkha, if you were already okay, then you wouldn't be scrolling on your cell phone. You'd just be content to be whatever it is right now. And so this is what we're planning on, is to become our nature. Our nature then is the Buddha nature, because we are naturally already free from dukkha, because we have well practiced moment by moment, time after time, to come out of that. So, Alex has been recently hitting us over and over again with the V8 commercial about V8 juice, which is it's kind of a tomato-like substance, but it's got all kinds of vegetables in it, so it's not so much of a tomato taste. It actually tastes more like celery. But the point is that in the commercial they say, I could have had a V8. What that really means in the Dhamma sense is, I could have been practicing correctly. I've seen people talk about that on the group where they say, oh, I think about practicing correctly. I think about, let's just be okay and practice being okay. And then they'll say, well, wait a minute, I'm just going to go write some code instead. When they could have had the V8, now they're writing code up late in the night, hoping that they're going to get some pleasure and some benefit from writing the code, to where in fact they could have had the benefit of not writing the code all along. But we'd go and we'd do things to scratch that itch without recognizing that that itch was there already. So we have a duty to start recognizing how pervasive the dukkha actually is. It's pervasive. It's there on a regular, almost moment by moment basis. You could say that someplace on your body is itching, all over the body, someplace is itching. Well, we could say that mostly about the mind. Someplace in the mind, there's an itch, and we're out there trying to scratch it as opposed to treating it correctly. Now, when I talk about itching and scratching in the ordinary sense, the itching and the scratching, the better thing to do is to put an ointment on that mosquito bite, to put an ointment on that scab, to put an ointment there rather than scratching it, because when we scratch, we make things worse. But that's exactly the same thing. The scratching that we're doing is actually, in the Dhamma sense, is that we're disappointed with something, and we want to cover up that disappointment, that dukkha, that dissatisfaction. We're trying to cover it up with some sort of sensual pleasure. When I was young, it was said that, well, why don't you go treat yourself? Here the girl is enormously overweight. She's fat, but she's depressed. She's unhappy. And the church lady goes and says, well, because you're so depressed and unhappy, why don't you go treat yourself? And the girl sees that, hears that. What she does, she goes to Dairy Queen. She goes to McDonald's because she thinks that that's the treat. To where, in fact, a much better treat would be to sit and just enjoy the moment. Go directly to the dissatisfaction, and instead of scratching it, let's give it a balm. Wholesome thoughts, then, is like a salve. It's like a medicine to practice over and over again, which means that you keep rubbing the balm into the wound so that it will heal. And this is your duty. This is the point that the Buddha is making that was really stressed by Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. We have a duty to the Dhamma. And the reason why the world is so, let us say, messed up is because they're not doing their duty to the Dhamma. They're merely trying to scratch. Now, it would be a whole lot better. It would be salving, in fact, if you've got an itch and you don't have any salve on it, just rub it. Rubbing it gently would be a whole lot better than scratching it. And so what we need to do when we can see the dukkha is to rub it gently, to have wholesome thoughts. There now, everything is going to be all right. Everything is okay. There's not a worry in the world. We have a duty to start having wholesome thoughts one after another. Now, the Eightfold Noble Path is known as a path, and a lot of people have a misconception about the path as, let us say, a pathway to some place, like a path to paradise or a path to nirvana or something like that. And that a better way of looking at it is that you have a duty to, for your next footfall, to place that foot in a wholesome, happy place. Don't wander off into the crap. Don't wander off into the ditch, but watch where you're going step by step, moment by moment. As you proceed into the future, you do it by taking a wise step, one step at a time. This is the path. It's but a better way of saying it is looking at it in the moment. This next step should be a wholesome step. Let's start paying attention to that. Let's not go to, oh, well, I don't feel very good now, and I don't feel like practicing. If you have the idea of you don't feel like practicing, that's actually an admission that you need to do your duty to practice right now. If you don't feel like practicing, what that means is that you are actually scratching rather than salving. So if you say, I don't feel like practicing right now, the next thought should be, hot dog, this is the right time to practice. That's your duty. Do your duty to the Dhamma, and you will get the benefit of it right away. This is the way that we could look at it. Is if we have our duties, then we can see them. Now, Ivan asked a question, and so the answer to that he asked is, well, what is our what is the school fee? Do we actually owe something to the Dhamma teacher? Well, if the Buddha, if Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, in fact, was already okay, if Achan Po is already okay, then he does not care whether I'm doing my duty to the Dhamma or not. He's already okay. Me doing my duty to the Dhamma, or even my duty to my teacher, is not an issue for him. He's already okay. What my duty then is not to my teacher of giving him gifts or whatever. My duty to the teacher is my duty to myself, which is to practice correctly. And my duty to practicing correctly now means that I'm in that state of, okay, I'm all right. I've got everything I need. I am not suffering right now. And so now our duty comes in the sharing of that being okay. Not forcing the Dhamma down somebody's throat, not becoming some great teacher, but just spreading your joy. Spread your okayness. This is something that is your duty. Rather than I'm okay when I'm alone, but when I'm out in the world, I'm worldly. Oh no, your duty is to take that which you've gotten on your own when you're practicing in seclusion and getting your mind into that okay state. Now you have a duty to take that out into the world and to pay it back to the world. Actually, is not paying it back, it's kind of paying it forward. There's an old movie about paying it forward. Examples of that would be that a child can never repay his parents for the upbringing, but that parent then, or that child becomes a parent and he passes the duty forward. That's what keeps civilizations alive, is because people pay their parenting fees by becoming a parent. So you pay your Dhamma fees, you pay your duty to the Dhamma by being the Dhamma. Spread your joy. This is the way. Ivan, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
All right. So this is the way that we begin to recognize that we've got duties. And that when we fulfill our duties, we gain the benefit of that. So, in an ordinary sense, let's say that you owe a debt, that you've got a mortgage on your car or on a house, or you've got credit card bills. If you don't pay those credit card bills, what happens, Alex? If you don't pay your debt, what happens?
They get you. They come get your stuff.
And you don't like that much, do you?
Maybe not. I'm not sure.
Well, you didn't like it very much when you had your motorbike stolen, did you? You didn't like that.
It was okay. I didn't like working on it anymore, so I let it. Hey, bye-bye. Plus, they paid me for it. I mean, this is the thing about getting your stuff taken. It's just another opportunity to let go of that stuff.
That's
don't
so
know.
Dhamma on you. That's tricking the V8. But most
Yeah,
people,
I thought so.
yeah. So when we are in debt, we have an obligation to pay that debt. If we don't pay the debt, they're going to come take your stuff away from you. Now, Alex is pointing out, come get it, because now I'm free from it. But that's the wrong way to do it. The better way to do it is to pay our debts, be free from it, and then give it away. Because now we're practicing generosity rather than dealing with the loss. So that's an ordinary way of looking at it, that we have debts to pay. And you are really, really indebted to the Dhamma. Now that you know the noble Dhamma, you are under obligation to fulfill it. And if you don't, you're going to suffer. Only this time, because you're educated in the Dhamma, you're going to see that suffering as bigger and bigger. Now, the dukkha itself may have been the same, but now you're a whole lot closer to it. And you know that when you're close to something, it's a whole lot bigger than when you're distant from it. So, the Dhamma, actually, the Eightfold Noble Path and the Four Noble Truths, brings you closer and closer to your own dukkha, which means that it increases your obligation to do something about it. It increases your obligation. That people who hear about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path and don't do anything about it are much more likely to suffer even more than they did before they heard anything about it. It's actually better to stay ignorant if you're not going to do your duty. So that's like paying a debt. If you don't have the money to buy that object that you want, you might suffer. But if you buy it on credit and now you can't pay for it and they come and take it away, you're going to feel even worse. And so this is what we're meaning by that, is that by learning the Dhamma, you say, in fact, you're a naughty guy, Dhammarato. You taught me about the Dhamma and you taught me about the Four Noble Truths, and now I'm hurting even more than I used to. Well, that's your choice. But I'm getting quite a lot of joy out of talking about the Dhamma. I get a lot of joy out of seeing people gain value from the Dhamma, even though some don't. But I caution everyone to stay on the path, one step at a time after time. If you don't watch where you're going to step on some crap, you're going to step on a nail, or you're going to fall into a ditch because you're not watching where you're going. So now you have an obligation to watch where you're going. In the old days, you'd wind up in the ditch, and that was okay. It was familiar territory. But now that you're on the Eightfold Noble Path, you're not going to spend much time in the ditch anymore, because when you do, it really, really hurts. It really hurts. And so we're not going to do it. We see our duty to the Dhamma, and we're going to practice our duty to the Dhamma. So, let me see who I can pick on. Brett, you have a duty to the Dhamma. Can you see you have duty to the Dhamma?
Yes, I can, clearly.
And so you have a duty to treat your wife well.
Absolutely.
So, Karwan, do you see that you have a duty to the Dhamma? You've got a job to do. I've given you a task to do, and you're going to suffer greatly if you don't do what I tell you to do, which I'm not telling you to do anything other than practice being happy.
Yep. And also a duty to myself, not only a duty to Dhamma.
Guess where the damage always winds up. So in that case, by having a duty to the Dhamma, what that actually means is you've got a duty to yourself to not harm yourself. You have a duty to not scratch those itches, but to salve them instead. So, Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks for that. Kind of just marveling over here how it's basically the samest message every week, but with a different flair. uh, no, as we were talking about therapists earlier, I am in therapy right now. And my last session, I kind of like realized that, like, in like a talk a couple weeks ago, you were talking about like how if you don't live the Dhamma, you're basically, it's the Shakespeare quote about how everyone's like the world's a stage and everyone's reading a script and everyone's script says childhood at the top of it. and it's interesting because like I look at my childhood and I was like kind of afraid of my parents, but I was more afraid of like the world, and so I was just in this state of like deep fear of both options. So that's what my script kind of says, you know, like, and so yeah, this has been, uh, it's been, and then, and as you're mentioning, you know, I don't know if I've actually been turned up or if I'm just more aware of it, but it does, I mean, I feel like everything I do is out of fear. So a lot of reprogramming. Yeah.
But here you're using the word fear and merely relabeling that that's just a form of dukkha.
Right.
Fear, in fact, is the primary dukkha.
Mm-hmm.
And everything we do out of fear, except that what we do instead of doing the correct thing, what we do is we guard the self against the danger that we made up. Rather than checking it out to recognize it right now, there's nothing to fear. Wow, what a relief it is. There is nothing to fear right now. To quote Martin Luther King just a little bit differently, freedom at last, freedom at last. I right now I see nothing to fear. Free at last. But you have to look to see that there's nothing to fear. But most people are just going to go around being afraid, hiding in a milkshake, hiding in a scrumptious food, hiding in the brothel, hiding in a bottle, because they're hiding away from the fear rather than recognizing that there is nothing to fear.
Right. And that's like one of the things that's been, I mean, speaking of I mean, recognizing always these fears, they're not here, right? Like they're, like you said, it's made up, it's literally manufactured in the mind. If that thought hadn't happened, there would be nothing to be afraid of. But that thought did happen, and therefore I'm reacting to it. Yeah.
Right. Instead of reacting to that thought, let's look more correctly and have a better thought. Let's correct that wrong thought rather than responding to it.
Yep. Yeah. But as you say, like, I was going to say just one more thing, which is just like the program.
I'm listening.
The programming seems deep, as you mentioned. It's almost like we're programmed for this like self-defense against nothing. The whole body responds, like everything. Like it's before, a lot of times before you can even catch it. But yeah, like just trying to catch as many as I can. Yeah.
All right. Be on guard. That's the duty that you have, is to be alert. I've got an old joke, but nobody gets it normally. And that is, be alert. The world needs more alerts. There's not enough alerts out there, so be alert. Be alert to your own dukkha. so that you don't have to respond to it. You can respond to the fact that you can see right through it and that there's nothing beyond it. So, Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I love the analogy about the scratching. That feels really on point. What I'm taking is like these kind of bizarre, like as I've been practicing, I'm starting to notice some of these behaviors that in retrospect seem sort of bizarre. And it's like it's like they're just trying to suppress symptoms instead of like directly treating the underlying cause.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like hitting snooze a bunch of times instead of just getting out of bed and turning the alarm off. Like I feel like that's what I'm doing. Yeah, or just sleeping more. But then the alarm is gonna, when you hit snooze, it's like the alarm is coming again. It's not going
Again,
away.
he's going to get you.
Like, get out of bed and turn it off. So that's what I'm taking. Thanks for the talk, Dhammarato.
Okay, Christina, what do you have to say?
Hi, good evening. Um,
I'm listening.
it's between the Theravada. I think that I understand. It makes more sense to me, the practice, the Theravada tradition, because of what you shared. I never thought about it before, like that, but it just makes more sense every time you teach and make kind of comparisons about. There's not like a permanent anything. There's causes and conditions that arise.
Well, we can
Anyway,
use that Mahayana term of Buddha nature only in the sense of, all right, that's your nature, get into it. You've also got the nature of defilements and unhappiness, and you do that a lot. Get out of it. You've got two natures. You've got a left foot nature and a right foot nature. It's your choice. And that once you hear that you've got 2 feet, you've got a duty to practice correctly. Anna, I see you smiling. Wow, you got a great big smile on your face. What do you have to say?
It's getting more and more interesting. That's all I have to say. Overwhelmingly interesting.
Yes, in fact, you could possibly better than most people on the group because of your Eastern European influences, because in Eastern Europe, everything is a duty.
Maybe I cannot connect it, but maybe. I need to think about this part.
Well, now we recognize we do now have a duty. Instead of being told what to do and thinking that that's our duty, now we have to see how things actually really are in reality. That's our duty.
My client said, I'm coming because I'm afraid of you. And I said, good. And she said, this is your Russian nature.
Okay. Mr. Ben, what do you have to say?
Thanks for the talk, Dhammarato. Really good. Yeah, no need to scratch. Can just relax instead. And when you relax, the itchiness goes away by itself.
So, Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed the talk. Thank you for your talk as always. Two thoughts came to mind. One was about conscience.
About what?
When you're talking about a duty to the Dharma, it makes me think of as your moral sense gets stronger, your conscience gets stronger from a Western point of view. And the other
Oh,
thought that
yes,
came to mind when you were
conscience.
talking when you're talking about the Buddha Dharma or the Buddha nature. I mean, I have more of a background in Mahayana, and my understanding of it, of Buddha nature or the unborn Buddha mind, is similar to your concept of everything being okay. The deep down, everything is okay, and that's with everybody, regardless of whether they know it or whether they act it. But maybe
Well,
I'm misunderstanding
another
what you
way
mean
of
by Buddha
saying
Dharma.
it is deep down, everything is shit. But deeper down than that is the plate that the shit is on. That everything really deepest down is okay. But while we're digging, all we're doing is digging through a pile of shit. So let's stop digging down through a pile of shit and recognize that everything already is okay. Let's just get right to the bottom of it. That's your duty, is to stop digging through the shit and just go right to the bottom of it. Where everything is okay, everything is fine.
On the question of duty to the Dharma, I've sometimes wondered why teachers teach. So, for example, somebody who's like a Zen teacher or whatever puts a huge amount of effort into it and turns up every week several times to teach. Are you saying that comes from this sense of duty? It's like an inherent sense that it's the right thing to do.
All right, I'll go with that. If he is teaching good Dhamma, then he is getting great benefit for himself by teaching good Dhamma. But we also have a bunch of Christian preachers that are in it for some other reason. And so, yes, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, he was into the Dhamma the whole hog. And so that's the life of a good monk. The life of a good monk is that it's just all Dhamma. That's living the Dhamma. We have in a way, we have an obligation to just live Dhamma. And so if you've got a good teacher who is teaching on a regular basis 3 or 4 times a week, go and congratulate him. Tell him you can see the value, and also recognize that you can see not just the value of him teaching, but the value that he himself is getting out of it.
No, I was going to say I agree. And I think the feeling probably of everyone on the call is we feel the same way towards you.
Well, you owe me. You owe me that smile. But you don't give it to me, you keep it on your face. So, okie dokie, what do you have to say?
Good talk, Dhammarato. It's always good to hear you.
How about you, Babastine? Do you have something to say?
No, I don't have anything to say. I'm enjoying listening. Thank you.
How about you, Eric?
Yeah, just a little doubt when you mentioned that when we know the Dhamma a little and then stop practicing, we may have more intense dukkha than if we never practice. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it seems a bit contradictory to my understanding of good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Especially because, like, even if you know a little Dhamma, then like life goes on as normal, but then I can have small sparks of remembering and practicing correctly. Why would that be more painful than not knowing the Dhamma at all?
Yeah, that's the case. It's like if you have a splinter in your finger and you go about doing your daily duties, when you start paying attention and start picking at that splinter in your finger, it's going to hurt more. But if you didn't know that you had a splinter in your finger, you might have the throbbing, but you're not paying attention to it. That in fact, in the ordinary world, a really good example of that would be an auto mechanic who busts his knuckles on that wrench, but he keeps working on that car. He's got a duty to that car engine to get it fixed. And it's only when he goes into the house and washes his hand does that busted knuckle actually start to hurt, really hurt. But while he's working, he's not noticing it. Well, that's how we live our lives. We're living our lives after sensuality, trying to get that engine fixed, and we're not recognizing that we've got a busted knuckle. Now that you've gotten the Dhamma, now that you know that you've got a busted knuckle, you're going to start paying attention to it. Does that make sense for you, Eric?
Somehow, like that would mean that it would be like a little bit hard in the beginning, a little bit hard in the middle, and good in the end, no?
Well, no, because it's good in the beginning when you see that busted knuckle, because now you're going to take care of it. You're going to clean it, you're going to bandage it, and you're going to care for it. That's why it's good in the beginning, because you're doing your duty to that busted knuckle.
Okay.
And you feel a whole lot better with salve and it being clean, got all of the oil and grease and dirt and grime out of it. And it's going to feel a whole lot better while it's healing. That's why it's good in the beginning. Because now you're doing something about it. So I think I picked on everybody.
Mm.
So does anybody have anything left to say? Hey, Mikey, why don't we take this thing home? Your mic is off.
Got it unmuted. There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. Thanks for joining us today, friends. Glad you all are here. Feel free to stay on the call. There's no need to go. Dhammarato is going to go and get some rest. But we can keep hanging out, chatting the noble Buddha Dhamma. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and check out the video description to join us here on the Dhamma Friends Discord. You can also listen to these calls on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcasting platforms. We also invite you to visit the Open Sangha Foundation .org website. There you can find all sorts of resources like our Sangha map, Buddhadasa books, and other fun things to play around with. So yeah, thanks again, everyone, for being here. Don't worry, be happy, take care, take it easy. Remember to nurture. Yeah, be at peace. Okay.
One last thing, and that is Midnight Gospel. Did you get your mic going?
What's the Midnight Gospel?
Yes, the Midnight Gospel. Did he get his mic going? All right. Never mind. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. We'll see you soon. And by the way, stay on the call. Make some friends here. It's your duty to make friends here.
Thanks,
So,
Dhammarato.
all right. We'll see you later.
Thanks, Dhammarato.
Have a nice day.